So welcome. Extend a warm welcome to all listeners today. It's been a while since I have hosted a webinar, so it's good to be back again. Uh, I'm Sankalp and I represent PMSAIF World. We are one of India's leading platform for alternates, and we help investors in various ways choose the right alternate product for them for their portfolio. We do something called the QRC, which is our proprietary and trademark analysis of a lot of PMSs, and it's live on our website for all to access. QRC stands for quality, risk, and consistency. And the genesis of PMSCI World has been to get new products, get fund managers' opinions to investors, and help them make informed decisions. And in that course, we have got Phillip Capital today to discuss few of their differentiated strategies, their products that they have manufactured in conjunction with a lot of investors, and they have tried to answer a lot of needs of investors there. So, without much ado, let me introduce the guests I have today. So, Nishit Shah, who is the AVP Investments at at Phillip Capital, is the one is the gentleman wearing the jacket for listeners.
Hi guys.
Thank you. You waved. So he's a triple graduate with more than 15 years of experience in the stock markets, and he has successfully identified themes and stocks way before the market has been able to. He's worked with companies like Motilal Oswal, AMSEC, and Sushil Finance, and before joining Phillip Capital. So we have someone who's seen market cycles, picked stocks in through high valuation phases, through market lulls, and a lot of it. Okay, on our second guest today is a gentleman in the tie who's called Mihir. Mihir Shegaonkar is again AVP Alternate Investments. He has 6 years of prior experience in the asset management industry, working with the passives division at DST Mutual Fund. After that, he went to study at the IIM and at one of the most prestigious schools in the country, IIM Ahmedabad. He passed out in 2020. He is a CFA charter holder and a CA by profession, a CA by qualifications. That's a lot of good academic rigor behind him. He's got good experience in portfolio management, market making, index valuation, treasury, and a lot of other functions. So today's discussion is going to be around things which investors would have heard, would not have heard, would have missed amongst a lot of noise in the market. So I put it across to you, gentlemen, to probably introduce these to us. And Nishit, I'll ask you to go first.
Sure.
You'll also upload your presentation in the while, and do keep sending us your questions. Okay, we'll spend good time answering most audience questions like we always do, and we will try to be as interactive as possible. So over to you, Nishit, and then we'll come to Mihir with your presentation. So I'll just upload it.
Sure. Thanks, Sankalp. Yeah. Of course. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. My name is Nishit Shah. Yeah. And firstly, thanks a lot for giving us time on this Friday evening and joining us. I hope everyone at your end is safe and healthy. Okay. So yeah. So let's go about our presentation. Yeah. So we'll try to keep the presentation as fluid as possible. Yeah. So, and of course, we'll take questions at the end of the day. So today we are here to
also Mihir and I will switch off the camera while you're presenting. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So today we are here to talk about two of our very differentiated strategy. Yeah. So I will take you through first what Phillip Capital is, our investment philosophy, and then me and me will both of us will talk about each of the differentiated strategy. Yeah. So talking about Phillip Capital. Yeah. So that way Phillip Capital, we are very large global behemoth. Yeah. We have got more than 40 years of existence spread across 15 countries, right from US to Australia. We are headquartered out of Singapore. And in that region, we are like number one. Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, we are a bank. Thailand, we are an insurance company. Yeah. Hong Kong, China. Yeah, we have got offices in Europe. Here in India also, we are quite large. But our main clientele is on the institutional side and on the HNI side. So on the institutional side, you name a very large institution investor, any hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, any of the domestic fund houses, we would be doing business with all of them. Again, on the HNI side, we would be doing business with largest of the HNI clients to, of course, many discrete HNI clients like you. Yeah? So that way, Phillip Capital is a very large global MNC. Yeah, we are spread across 15 countries. Globally, we manage $45 billion under asset and custody. Yeah, so that's again a big number. Okay, and of course, our shareholders fund is in excess of $1.5 billion. Now coming to why Phillip Capital PMS. Okay, so the first point is what we have decided. We started our PMS out here in India in 2016. We are one of the late entrants, but what we decided that we'll operate as a boutique PMS provider. Yeah. Though of course we operate under the large umbrella of Phillip Capital, but we want to operate as a boutique financial provider. Yeah, as a service provider. Why this? Yeah, because what we understand, PMS as a asset class demands that. Yeah, so if we don't want to run a very quasi kind of a mutual fund strategy or something like that, so that's why it's boutique. Yeah, and at the same time, what happens, the large umbrella of Phillip Capital gives us a lot of support. Yeah, the compliance cost, the research cost, and all those things that adds on to it. Yeah, the second thing is we have access to a lot of global research. Yeah, just to give you a couple of quick examples, if you guys remember 4 to 5 years back, a lot of pharma companies in India have having US FDA issues. Since we have an office in US, we are able to call two ex-US FDA inspector out here in India to explain us why suddenly all these pharma companies were having a problem, how soon they can come out of it, and who would be the biggest beneficiary. Yeah, so that time, in fact, 5 years back, those guys had told us that for next 4 to 5 years, all the pharma companies would be in a big problem. And till recently, we saw that the stocks were not doing well. It is only since last 8 9 months that the pharma stocks have kind of made a comeback. Okay, or maybe a lot of specialty chemical companies were getting shut down in China because of the pollution reason. Again, our analysts could travel to China because again we have an office out there, come back and give us the right kind of a perspective to pick up the right kind of stock. Yeah. So that is the second reason why Phillip Capital PMS. So it is not only, so of course here we have a very large research team of 25 member plus research team. Yeah. But at the end of the day, at the global reach, the research also helps us a lot. The third point is differentiated products. Yeah. So what uh, we have tried to do over last 5 to 6 years, of course, we have got our standard products, but therein, of course, we have tried to maintain our performance amongst the best, the top quartile. But we have got the differentiated products as well, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. How are we different? Yeah, these are the four pillars of our PMS that, and we want to stick to them. Yeah, so the first thing is we don't have a model portfolio concept. Yeah, the majority of the PMS industry, we have seen that they have a model portfolio. A client who comes in 2 years back and a client who is coming in today, they have a similar kind of a portfolio. Yeah, here we don't do that. We try to customize the client's portfolio based on what level they're entering, what are the valuations, what are the stocks that we want to buy on those valuations. So that is also very important. Okay, so it's not one model portfolio fits all approach kind of a thing. Yeah. The second thing is we stagger the investments. We don't invest everything on day one itself. Yeah? I know this is a maybe a little bit of a debatable topic, yeah, wherein people might say, oh, you're trying to time the markets. No, we are not trying to time the markets. No one can time the markets, and especially we at Phillip Capital, we can't time the markets. But here, the thought process is what is the rush to invest everything on day one itself? Yeah. We are asking investors to give us 3 to 5 years kind of an investment horizon. We are talking about long term, but we are investing everything on day one itself. Yeah. Of course, we understand the larger players in the industry need to follow a model portfolio concept. They need to have invest everything on day one itself because for them it's a scalability. Yeah. But here we understand that investor is not investing because of our scalability. Yeah. He wants consistent returns. He is more concerned about his returns. Yeah. So that is what we mean by staggered investment. The third thing is we have a very, very strict discipline process. Yeah. Throughout the biggest learning of my last 15 years is after doing a lot of research as well, there are chances. Okay, let me rephrase it. We'll go wrong. After doing so much of research as well, yeah, we'll surely go wrong. But the idea is to accept your mistake, sell those stocks, and immediately shift to something else. Again, I will give you two quick examples out here. Yeah, we had invested into a couple of companies in late 2019, early 2020, Inox and VIP. Yeah, Inox theaters and VIP bags. Okay, of course, the company is good balance sheet led by great management. But come pandemic, we thought that these businesses are not going to be doing well for a lot many at least a couple of years. Yeah, so we sold both of the stocks at around 15-20% loss. Of course, after we sold off, the stock went down another 30-40-50%. Yeah, so that is again, so what we want to be very quick. Yeah, so that is nimble. Yeah, so how we can be nimble? It is when you have that thought process of again a boutique service provider. The final thing is again, yeah, it's there's a complete handholding from the fund management team. Of course, there would be a relationship manager who would be in constant touch with you, doing a lot of operational resolving your operational queries. But we from the fund management team are in constant touch with the clients. Good performance, bad performance, we are always there to resolve the client's query. Okay. Now we talk about our investment philosophy. Okay, so to put our investment philosophy into one simple sentence is: hold on to your winners for longest possible period of time, sell your losers immediately. Yeah, so that is the single line that we follow to the hilt. Yeah, so that is where I gave you example of VIP, Inox. There have been stocks that we have been holding on for like the longest possible period of time, Bajaj Finance of the world, yeah, Honeywell Automations of the world, Abbott's of the world, wherein we want to ride on to winners. Of course, we have a very strict no-go policy as well. Yeah, we don't invest into PSU stocks, no cyclical stocks, no high debt companies, no bad managements. See, I know the topic about this between GARP and BARP right now. Yeah, that buy at any price and growth. Yeah. So what we fall in between some there. Yeah, of course we are very high quality oriented people, but that's because of our size and because of our boutique nature, we can get into stocks wherein large PMS providers can't get into. So we can get them into at the right price as well. Yeah, so we want to buy quality stocks, but at the right price as well. Yeah, so that is what our investment philosophy is, and I'll again talk about how we follow classic PE approach. Yeah, so invest, nurture, and divest. Yeah, so of course we follow a lot many filters. The first thing is for us, which is very important, is the management quality. Howsoever big the opportunity is, if we are not sure about the management quality, we do not invest into it. Then comes the earnings potential, and then comes the valuations. Then of course, once we have invested, we keep nurturing it, we constantly keep an eye on it. Yeah, we do a lot of ground level checks. Yeah, that is something wherein again we are quite different with our large research team. We are in constant touch with an ex-employee, an auditor, a contract manufacturer for the company, a distributor. So, and of course, as I told you, we are very quick as far as the selling is concerned. Of course, the philosophy is long term, but if we feel we have gone wrong, we'll immediately sell off the stock as well. This is the classic portfolio construct that we follow. We do a quantitative screening research, and then we create a portfolio of around 15 to 20 stocks for each of our clients. Now I will talk about why long-term approach. Yeah, these two slides, I love these two slides. Yeah, this is what I keep telling my clients. Yeah, why long-term approach is very much ideally suited. Let's take an example of HDFC Bank out there. Over 10 years, the stock has fallen more than 20% 4 times. Yeah, in fact, in 2008, you would have seen that the stock has fallen by 58%. But despite that, and I'm repeating it, despite that, if you would have just held on to the stock for last 10 years, you had made 600% returns. Yeah. But why you also need to constantly monitor your portfolio. Let's take an example of Punj Lloyd. Okay, there was a time when Punj Lloyd was called as the next L&T, a big infrastructure stock. The stock went up also a lot, yeah, in 2007, 2006 to 2008 period. But today that stock is what, 90, 96, 98% down. Yeah. So long term is very much essential, but you also need to be in the right set of stocks. And how do you need to constantly monitor the portfolio. That is quite essential as far as investments is concerned. Yeah, so you might pick up the best. Suppose we had GMM Pfaudler in our portfolio, we had invested in that company at around 600-700 rupees, but we are fortunate that we sold a substantial portion at around 6,000 plus in our portfolio. Yeah? So long term is important, but you also need to monitor it. Yeah, so suppose sometimes you might have to sell it at a loss, sometimes you also will have to sell it at a profit, but of course every time you might not get it right, but if you get it right 70 to 80% of the times, then you would make a lot of money. Yeah, so that is quite essential, and this is the crux of our investment philosophy. So investment approaches. Yeah, so today of course I'm here to talk only about the last one. Yeah, but I'll just quickly run it through. Yeah, the first one is Philips Signature India portfolio. It is a classic multi-cap portfolio strategy. The second one is Philips Emerging India portfolio, wherein we invest into mid and small caps. So these two strategies are quite standard, which you will find across the entire industry. But as far as the performance is concerned, we are up there amongst the top quartile. You'd always find us amongst there. The third strategy, yeah, again, this is where our uniqueness comes in. The third strategy is called as Philip Ethical India Portfolio, which is your Sharia compliant portfolio. The fourth strategy is Philip Star Portfolio, which is a multi-manager portfolio, wherein instead of investing into stocks, we invest into mutual fund units. Yeah. The fifth strategy is Philip Multi-Asset Portfolio. It's a multi-asset strategy wherein we invest into gold, international equity, debt, and Indian equity. Yeah. And the last strategy that today I will talk about in a little bit in detail, it is called as Spaces, which is basically a completely customized portfolio for our investors. Okay. So, of course, the investment philosophy remains the same across all the strategies. So why we started with Paces? Yeah, so Paces is wherein we create a completely customized portfolio for our clients. Yeah, so many of the clients used to come in. Yeah, okay, they used to tell us, "Arey, we gave this portfolio to one of the fund managers, and they sold off my Nestle, they sold off my HUL, they sold off stocks like Kotak Bank since it was not there in their model portfolio." So what we try to do out here, we take up the clients, most of the time we take up the client's existing portfolio and we realign it a little bit. Yeah, but say suppose I like TCS, but the client has Infosys in his portfolio. Yeah, in my pecking order, TCS is first, but Infosys is second. It is not that I don't like Infosys. Yeah, so just for realigning it to my model portfolio, we'll not sell Infosys. In fact, we'll keep tracking it. Yeah, so that is one kind of customization that we do. The second is a client can come in and say, Nishit, I want you to create an ESG compliant portfolio. Okay. Or I want you to create a concentrated portfolio of only 7 to 8 mid cap ideas. Yeah. So we are more than happy to create this kind of customized portfolios for our client. Yeah. Recently, a few years back, in fact, we had one of our clients who had told us that I want you to invest into two big jugadus of India, Ambani's and Adani's. Yeah. So we created a portfolio wherein we had invested only into Reliance Industries. Of course, we did not fortunately invest into any of the Anil Ambani group of companies. Then we invested into a few of the Adani group of companies. The portfolio did very well. Yeah. So idea out here is, yeah, what happens? Of course, we have got our standard strategies, but sometimes client also, especially large ticket size clients, what they have given their money to multiple managers, wherein the Bajaj Finserv, an HDFC Bank, a Reliance, an Asian Paints is there across all the portfolios. So he comes to us and he tells us, "Oh, Nishit, I want you to do something different, wherein you are able to generate that alpha for me." Yeah, that of course that is main point. Yeah, whatever customization we do, if you are not able to generate the alpha, then there is no point about it. So this is where we created a customized portfolio, and we have been doing it quite successfully for many of our clients. The minimum ticket size out here, what we are seeking from our clients is at least a crore plus. Yeah, of course, the minimum ticket size in PMS is 50 lakhs, which we can accept for any of our strategies. But for this particular strategy, we are seeking at least a 1 crore plus kind of a thing. Yeah, because it creates a lot of work for us. Yeah, and that is where we are more than happy to help the clients, but we are seeking a higher ticket size. Yeah, so that is what I wanted to present. Now I will hand it over to Mihir. Yeah, so Mihir has recently joined us, and we are the first ones to start a very unique portfolio. Again, it's a very differentiated portfolio that we have started with, based out of Gift City. Yeah, it gives you an exposure to international stocks and ETF. Yeah, so that is where Mihir has joined us, and he'll take you through. And we, of course, I'm more than happy to take any questions on any of our strategies or Paces, and of course, we can maybe talk about a little bit about markets if time permits. Yeah.
So we will take up all those questions towards the end. I can see questions coming. So once Mihir is done with his presentation, we can take up interesting questions that come up, or we can do a little primer on global markets, or on the mid and small cap correction.
Of course. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So maybe post Mihir's presentation, we can also
right.
talk.
Your presentation is uploaded, so you can also control. I'll just start the presentation.
Sure.
Okay. Nishit, you and I will switch off cameras. Yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for taking out time on a Friday evening. And I am here to present the global PMS strategy of Philip Capital. So I would like to begin my presentation by speaking a bit about the Gift City and what is the advantage that Gift City possesses. So today, Gift City is an SEZ, and in 2019, Gift City, okay, the IFSC authority was established as a unified regulator. So what this means is that for Gift City, there is a separate set of regulations which is very closely linked with the SEBI regulations, RBI regulations. And the whole idea is to make the Gift City regulatory mechanism very, very seamless for investors. So Gift City as a concept has been established so that it should serve as a very efficient platform for both inbound as well as outbound foreign currency transactions. And in the subsequent slides, I will be covering upon the Gift City as well, and of course the IFSC. So today, there are two major advantages that one can think of when we talk about Gift City. Firstly, the Gift City regulations have been designed in such a way where, for the first time, outbound investments, as in investments in overseas securities, have been specifically permitted under the IFSC guidelines. So this is a very major development. So resident Indians as well as, of course, non-resident individuals. So those who are specifically seeking exposure to overseas markets can actually come to Gift City and make those kind of investments. Secondly, Gift City is considered to be a foreign jurisdiction for exchange control purposes. So what this means for resident Indians is that resident individuals can actually remit money to Gift City using the LRS route and make overseas investments. And to facilitate this, there are specific IFSC banking units, which are the banking branches of the major banks which have been set up in Gift City. And of course, Gift City comes up with a lot of regulatory infrastructure as well. So there are a couple of exchanges which have been set up in Gift City. There is a separate regulatory mechanism for wealth managers and alternative investment funds. So of course, so this was a very basic introduction of the Gift City. So then I come to the next point, that why should one consider investing in global securities? Because, of course, we are very, very bullish on Indian economy. But at the same time, why should one consider global diversification in the first place? So allow me to present to you the country-specific benchmark returns for the previous decade. So I have chosen 12 benchmarks, and from top to bottom, I have actually gone from east to west. So we have Japan, Korea, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. Of course, Nifty 50 is the blue region. We have like England, Germany, and of course 3 indices picked from the US. Now, what we can see in this table is, so this table is a table which is explaining the yearly returns of each of these benchmarks. And what we can very clearly see is that Nifty 50 has not been the outperformer in each of the years. There have been many years where Nifty 50 has actually been the worst performer. There are areas like, let's say, China, Taiwan, which have done well. And, in the last 3 rows, if you see the US indices, largely they have actually done well over the previous decade. Not only that, but even on a CAGR basis, if you see, the US indices have actually outperformed other indices as well. So this actually, has busted a myth that if emerging market equities are a next pocket of growth, very clearly in the previous decade, the US has, kind of, opposed that myth and come out as a clear winner. Another point which I would like to specifically draw your attention to is that please observe the second last row, which is the returns of Nasdaq. So Nasdaq has been the clear outperformer for the 10 years, 10, 11 years. And this is a very clear indication that because Nasdaq is a very, very technology heavy index, in the previous decade, markets have actually rewarded those industries and companies which have been involved in technology developments and disruptive innovations. So, one very important reason why one should consider the global investing is mitigation of single country exposure. So, if you are an Indian investor investing only in Indian equities, you should certainly take an opportunity to diversify some portion of the single country risk. And secondly, we will be speaking about the technology disruptions in the subsequent slides as well. But what we can see is that using the Gift City mechanism, Indian investors have an opportunity to participate in global disruptions and technology innovations which are happening in other parts of the world. So, I will now touch base upon some of the trends in the global markets and the innovations that we can, observe. So firstly, climate change considerations. I think all of us in this forum will unanimously agree that if 4 years ago climate change was something that was being talked about, today climate change has actually been enforced at an institutional level across different countries. Okay, we have institutional investors moving out of fossil fuels, and there are a lot of venture capital investments happening in the green energy space. Of course, the next point is adoption of ESG principles. So, as many as 60 large organizations are actually committed to adoption of ESG principles in their financial reporting framework. So, we can very clearly see that because of the climate change considerations and the concern which people have, and let's say there are a lot of countries which have the target of becoming carbon neutral. So a lot of new industries such as the electric vehicles, renewable energy, solar energy, they have suddenly come into spotlight. And most of these trends are actually happening in the developed markets. The next point is changed business dynamics because of in the post-COVID world, and of course Industry 4.0 considerations. So what we can safely say, and this is something which has been agreed upon even by some of these consulting firms, is that because of the disruptions that have been caused by the COVID pandemic, certain organizations have actually preponed their digitalization plans. So there are certain business dynamics which have been completely altered because of the COVID-19. And then there were Industry 4.0 considerations in the previous decade. Okay, there has been a talk about artificial intelligence, robotics, and a lot of other things. Even right now, there have been specific industries, for example, semiconductors, which have been suddenly benefited because of the COVID-19 pandemic, owing to a very, very acute semiconductor chip shortage across the world. So if I come to my third bullet point, I would like to make this point that today technology is not just considered as a standalone sector, but technology and innovative disruptions are actually embedded across traditional industries. So just to list down a few, within the technology space, today US investors and developed market investors are talking about investments in artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things. In healthcare, you have the genomic revolution, neurotechnology, nanotechnology. In financial services, also, there is cryptocurrency and blockchain. There is this concept of decentralized finance, which is actually threatening the traditional banking industry. Even in manufacturing, you have additive manufacturing, also 3D printing. And the very reason why I'm listing down, all these new concepts is because in the developed markets, there are specific listed products available which give investors access to these specific themes. So, for example, exchange traded funds. Okay, today when we look at the total universe of exchange traded funds, an investor can choose from more than 9,000 different ETFs which give exposure to more than 60 plus countries. They are listed in exchanges across more than 45 countries. And these exchange traded funds are not only equity funds, but there are numerous asset classes like fixed income. There is, let's say, real estate investment trusts. There are currencies. There are even newer asset classes like cryptocurrencies and carbon credits. And of course, even different financial instruments. So even within fixed income, you have a lot of newer kind of fixed income classes also. There are exchange traded notes, there are convertible bonds, there are inflation protection bonds, not just plain vanilla treasury bonds. So this is where we come into play. Philip Ventures IFSC Private Limited. We are an entity domiciled in Gift City, and as part of our initial offering, we have come up with purely ETF portfolios. So I would take the opportunity to explain the pillars of our portfolio management process. So our portfolio management philosophy is driven by three main points: our value proposition, what we want to achieve for our investors, and what is our approach. So when it comes to value proposition, we are very closely aligned with the domestic PMS, considering the successful track record that we are focusing on only long-term wealth generation. And as Nishit pointed out, that we are backed by global expertise because we are operating in more than 15 countries. I am frequently interacting with the research analysts. I am also getting on calls with the Singapore team because what we are offering to you is a accumulation of the global expertise and we are following a research-driven approach in our process. The objective, what we want to achieve for our investors, is that we want to make global investments very, very seamless. And with this objective, we are actually aligning ourselves to Gift City because Gift City itself is in its endeavor to make global investing very, very easy for investors. And of course, through our products, because we are talking about the next decade, which is the 2020, 2030, and even beyond, there are certain trends which are prevalent today, and then there are certain ideas of tomorrow. And thankfully, there are listed products available which give exposure to both these trends of today as well as ideas of tomorrow. So, our objective is to ensure that investors can have participation in these ideas through our investments. And the methodology. So, the approach that we are following in managing our investments. So, firstly, we are monitoring structural developments across the globe and we are aligning our portfolio management process accordingly. And please mind you that these are structural developments. Today, there are many themes that are in news. There are many trends which are being talked about. But our expertise lies in identifying which are those themes which are actually going to give a very, very long-term advantage in terms of investor returns. So, let's say to give you an example of structural developments. Today, there are regulations implemented across the world around climate change. And suddenly, because of these regulations, there are certain industries which stand to benefit, and there are certain other industries, which are actually uh, going out of favor. So, identification of those industries at our end, okay, that is something that we would like to do for our clients. And at the same time, we are adopting very, very stringent risk management process at our end, using not only quantitative filters but even qualitative assessments. Because as I mentioned in one of the previous slides, there are more than 9,000 different ETFs. And our product portfolio comprises of 15, 20 ETFs each. So which are those 15, 20, 10 best ETFs out of 9,000 different ETFs? Because all of us will agree that while investing in an ETF is very, very easy because it typically tracks a basket of securities and trades like a stock, but selecting out of 9,000 securities, 9,000 ETFs, because at a global level, we are not just talking about broad market ETFs. We are not just talking about a Nasdaq ETF or let's say an S&P ETF, but we are talking about something like a consumer discretionary ETF, communications ETF. We are talking about semiconductors ETFs, robotics ETFs, artificial intelligence ETFs. So with this, I take the opportunity to introduce our products to you. Our first product is the Philip International Pioneer Portfolio. This is a portfolio which is comprised of only equity ETFs, and there is flexibility to allocate some portion to the newer asset classes like cryptocurrencies and carbon credits. And our investment objective is to generate capital appreciation through exposure to various sectors, themes, and geographies, which we believe are poised to grow over the medium to long term. And in choosing the ETFs, our focus is on innovations and regional developments. We want to identify and capture growth stories across businesses and geographies. So, if you are looking at this portfolio, while it is comprised of ETFs, our expertise actually lies in selection of those businesses and regions which we believe will do well over the next 5 to 10 years, over even the medium to long term. So your portfolio is first a collection of businesses which is each represented by an ETF. I come to the next portfolio, which is the Philip International Universal Portfolio. This is a multi-asset portfolio having allocations to not only equity and fixed income ETFs, but even other asset classes like REITs, currencies, and commodities. So our objective is to achieve capital appreciation through a well-diversified exposure to multiple asset classes, geographies, and sectors. And even within asset classes, we are identifying various instruments with different risk characteristics, each backed by an ETF. So our emphasis is to allocate capital between asset classes and identifying securities with potential upside. And what the investor will get in return is a multi-asset portfolio which will be very, very well diversified across different instruments with varying risk characteristics. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Right.
So yeah.
So thank you, Mihir. Thank you, Nishat, for the presentations. So we'll take up questions. Okay. So before that, I mean, we have questions coming in. I'm sure more will come in. Okay. So when we ask this question in our poll, how many know about investing in the gift city? Okay. Majority said they don't know. I mean, of course, it was a poll, so I don't know to what extent do they know or not know. Can you just begin with giving us a primer on how the gift city works, how an SEZ works in case of a financial, services kind of an SEZ, and what are the advantages to resident Indians, or just a brief about how the works are.
Sure. So, as you rightly pointed out, that Gift City is a special economic zone. It is, and right now, so Gift City is based out of Gandhinagar. It is, and as I mentioned in my presentation also, it is considered to be a region outside India for exchange control purposes. So, for the purpose of Foreign Exchange Management Act, okay, whatever investments one is making in Gift City are considered to be overseas investments. The very reason why this idea came into play was that they want to promote investments in US dollars, because as we understand, US dollar is a standard currency for transactions across the globe. The whole idea why Gift City came into play was that there were a lot of India based transactions, but because for the lack of a regulatory and an infrastructural setup, a lot of these transactions were unnecessarily being exported outside India. So the whole idea is that there are transactions worth $1 billion. I understand, from a webinar, that there is an opportunity that can actually be done within India, but through the gift city mechanism. The second point that I would like to make is that in the traditional investing, such as PMS or even mutual funds, especially at an operational setup, and because I come from the mutual fund background, I can tell you, as we all know, financial services firms is governed by multiple regulations. There is SEBI, there is RBI, there are banking regulations. And because of a lot of overlaps between these regulations, sometimes making investment decisions in a very seamless manner becomes difficult. So in Gift City, as I pointed out, it is a unified regulator which has a regulatory setup of its own, which of course derives most of its regulation from the domestic regulations. But there are specific concessions, specific allowances. I mean, just to give you an example, overseas investments are specifically permitted in Gift City. Okay, which something which I understand domestic PMS regulations do not allow directly. So with these concessions, with these new opportunities coming up, the Gift City actually becomes a doorway, both for inbound as well as outbound investors, and particularly for resident Indians, because investments
Right.
can be made outbound as well. There is the LRS route as well, which the resident individuals can effectively leverage to
Right.
make
Mihir,
those
so
kind
I
of
will ask a more
investments.
granular question here. Like,
Sure,
what
sure.
are the kind of securities listed on or available on gifts in Gift City? Okay,
Yeah.
like if an investor is giving you some money, what kind of a portfolio you will make for him? What are the securities? I mean, if it's equity, what kind of companies do list themselves on, in the perimeter of Gift City, or
Sure.
what is it that they are signing on for?
Sure. So right now we have a couple of exchanges on Gift City,
Hmm.
and there are mostly derivative dollar-based derivative contracts which are being listed on Gift City. But
Right.
our focus at Phillip Capital will not be investing on those exchanges right now. We are directly investing in overseas exchanges like Nasdaq, for example, because the Gift City regulations specifically permit us. So we will be directly buying those ETFs from the global exchanges, and because of the regulatory framework that we have, and because we'll be working very closely with the global broker, those kind of investments are available. In fact, I would also like to take the opportunity to share with all of you that right now there are only a handful of PMS as well as AIFs which are registered in Gift City. Seven to be precise, and these seven also include those which are in the process of getting their approval. And at our end, we have received the registration both as PMS as well as AI, the PMS as well as investment advisory. I'm sorry. We have the registration numbers also ready. So, as Nishit pointed out, that we are one of the very first players who are actually giving our investors an opportunity to diversify overseas.
Yeah, and most of them out of the six, seven who have got the license, they're actually more concentrating on the inbound rather than the outbound. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the advantage, Sankalp, what we are getting, say suppose of course investments into international stocks or an ETF, you can do it through multiple websites or multiple apps nowadays. Yeah, through an
Right.
LRS. Yeah. What the advantage that we are getting? It's yeah, we don't know. So suppose in India also it becomes quite difficult on what shares to buy, what and mutual funds to buy. Yeah. So globally the investors don't have one knowledge. Yeah. So that is where we come in. Yeah. And we do it under the PMS structure. Yeah. Wherein the minimum ticket size again is 50 lakhs. So
So
on
it
an
is,
average,
so
yeah.
yeah, it is $70,000 as per
Yeah.
regulation. So it
Yeah.
is in
So
line with the domestic
$70,000, so
plans.
which translates into 50 lakhs. Yeah. So that is where we come in, wherein we create a curated portfolio for an investor, which helps him to give exposure to multiple themes, which he spoke about in his presentation.
Right. So we'll come to more Gift City questions just because there
Sure.
have been a lot more, but we'll take a
Sure.
question, Nishit, for you. Okay. So you spoke of a bespoke discretionary PMS. Okay, very few managers. So discretionary PMS today sounds like something a relic of the past. You know, it sounds like a
Yeah.
landline phone or something like that.
Of
I
course.
mean, we
True.
haven't heard of those portfolios in a while. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe few managers or few banks do it for their clients, but it's not in vogue to say. Okay, so
Yeah.
what
True.
is this special offering that you have? You know, can you just tell us a little bit more about it? What kind of involvement do clients have in this portfolio? Where
Sure.
do you draw the line, or what value add do you add, and what are the kind of charges that you will probably,
Sure.
since it's a co-managed, if I may use that word.
Okay. So of course, firstly, Sankalpa, it's not a co-managed portfolio. Yeah.
Right.
So what we are taking a mandate from the client at the start. Yeah. That this is what the client wants us to, how to design the portfolio. Yeah. For example, yeah, I told you, yeah, one of the investors wanted to invest into Adani and Ambani group of companies. Yeah. So of course, a very large HNI client invested into multiple PMSs, AIF. Yeah. So he was not getting this kind of a solution anywhere. Yeah. So that is why he came to us, and that we created a customized portfolio for us. Yeah. There are a couple of doctors, yeah, who have invested with us. They've only invested into pharma stocks and healthcare stocks in their life. Yeah. Now, when they gave us their portfolio, they told the mandate was very clear, Nishit. This is where I've created my wealth. I want you to stay only invested into healthcare stocks. I don't want you to invest into anything else. Okay. So these are the kind of mandates. So of course, it's completely discretionary in nature, wherein the investment decisions, all of them would be taken by us. Yeah, what to buy, when to buy. But it is just before when we start, we take a specific mandate from the client. Okay, a client might want us to invest only into an ESG portfolio. Yeah, so rather than starting a new strategy which focuses only on ESG investment, yeah, we are more than happy, because nowadays what is happening, yeah, Sankalpa, again, large family offices have become quite ESG conscious.
Right.
Yeah, they want us to create an
Rightly
ESG
so.
portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is where we come in and we create a customized portfolio. Yeah, so it works beautifully. Yeah, and in fact I would say now more and more amount of clients want a customized portfolio. Yeah, because the standard portfolios, if you go and analyze the portfolios of major providers, yeah, 60 to 70% of the portfolio is similar. Yeah, the banks, yes, couple of consumption names, couple of mid cap names, you'd find it across everywhere. So that is where we come in. Of course, then it is not that we take a particular mandate and we not deliver returns. Yeah, if say suppose if a client comes in and tells us, Nishit, I want you to create a portfolio of only PSU stocks. Yeah, we don't resonate with that kind of a theme. So of course we'll not accept that kind of a mandate. Yeah, in fact I think we'll in fact come back. In fact, this would be more popular going forward. Yeah, and that is where again we have been one of the first ones to launch a kind of a customized portfolio for our clients.
Okay, so Nishit, just we will just follow that question up.
Yeah.
Okay, with the second part of that question. What are the challenges then that comes in from of a discretionary portfolio?
Yeah.
Because how we know it is, most managers would have a model portfolio or a certain number of stocks in coverage. Okay,
Sure.
from which they will build the portfolio depending when the client comes in. So here is a model which can be, someone can come and say, make me a portfolio of, let's say, only autos or only fuel or only consumer, okay,
Sure.
then your coverage space has to be broad enough to accommodate
Of
that.
course.
So
Yeah.
what are the challenges and
Yeah.
what are the rewards in favor, I mean, awarded to you
For
for
the
that
investors.
challenges? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So see, one, we are very clear. Yeah. For sake of our scalability, yeah, we would not compromise on clients' returns and everything. Yeah. And
Hmm.
that is why, in fact, for all my strategies, we don't have a model portfolio concept. We do staggered investment because that is in favor of the clients. Yeah. Say suppose if for my scalability, if I start doing, yeah, say अरे मैं 20-25 स्टॉक से ज्यादा नहीं देख सकता हूँ, yeah, that then I should not. Yeah, but that is not in favor for the clients. Yeah, so then why do that? Yeah, and see, of course, if client wants a standard product, yeah, Sankalp, we have seen today mutual funds are
Right.
on at par with returns. Yeah, so that it's a sometimes it's a misnomer. Yeah, that the PMS provides a better return. So if the client is looking for a standard product, I think in that case mutual funds provide a better kind of a solution. Yeah, so that is where we come in. Okay, so of course we are also mindful that okay, and that is why we don't take couple of few mandates. Yes, as I told you, if a client comes in for a PSU theme or something, as you gave an example, that auto. Now we don't resonate with that. Yeah, we feel that autos are not going to do well for next 2 to 3 years. Yeah, so we'll talk to the clients, yeah, that this is not what we can do because we don't feel we can generate that alpha. Okay, and of course we have a very large research team. Yeah, as I told you,
Right.
20 plus member research team. Each of my analysts having 10 plus years of experience, plus the PMS fund management team. Yeah, so that way we have the wherewithal. Yeah, but yeah, but the primary objective is what does the client want. Yeah, it is not just what we can do. Yeah, what does the client want and what can we add value to what the client wants. Yeah, clients, of course, if client wants any something, yeah, but if we are not able to do that, then of course we are more than happy to say no as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Nishit. I'll come back to you
Yeah,
in a while.
sure.
Mihir, questions for you.
Sure.
A lot of them. Okay.
Oh,
So
great.
the first question that I'll take is, like you said, there are lots of ETFs out there in the global markets. It's not just Nasdaq, S&P 500, or the MSCI ETF. So the question that the gentleman has asked is, Mr. Bharat Jain, what are the geographies that you are looking at in
Sure.
international investing? Maybe a little bit about why. Okay, we won't take to that because that's a separate topic of why are you investing in that geography. Just a primer over there.
Sure.
And the other very interesting question to me came across is, how are funds transferred in the case of Gift City investments? Is it an LRS or what is it? How does it work? So
Sure.
over to you.
Okay, so to answer your first question, as I mentioned in the slide that the total ETFs, 9,000 ETFs listed
Hmm.
across exchanges in more than 45 countries, give investors access to more than 60 different countries. Now, if I look at only US markets alone, we have various country-specific ETFs. So you have China ETF, you have Taiwan ETF, you have a Denmark ETF, you have a Switzerland ETF. There is Israel ETF also. Then there are
Right.
certain ETFs based on the sectors and businesses. So there's consumer discretionary, as I said. Even let's say within consumer discretionary, you have something like a retail. There is online retail. Within healthcare, you have let's say the digital wellness, which certainly took precedence when particularly in the pandemic. Even in technology, there is semiconductors, there is robotics, artificial intelligence, for example. And of course, now I spoke about regions. I spoke about there's technologies, the industries. There are even combinations. So there is for example an Israel technology ETF or a China internet ETF or a China consumer discretionary ETF. So the point that I'm trying to make, and of course even you have made this, that we are not just talking about a Nasdaq listed ETF or not just a Nasdaq ETF or an S&P ETF, but we are quite literally going down. We can look at the entire ETF universe at three dimensions. One is at a broad country level, second is at a sector level, and third is specific business idea. Who would have imagined that today there is also something called as a pet care ETF? There is a gender diversity ETF. Suddenly, there is a new ETF known as work from home ETF. And that is exactly where our stringent risk management policy also comes into play. That just because there are newer and newer themes doesn't mean that we just jump the gun and seek exposure just because the theme is trending. As an individual, let's say the special purpose acquisition companies is an asset class which was in the news actually 6 7 months ago. There are SPAC ETFs also, but we may not consider them if the underlying fundamentals really don't support them. And of course, because you asked countries, so why should we look at country-specific ETFs also? So today, as far as the COVID pandemic goes, a lot of developed markets are actually considered to be the front runners when it comes to post-pandemic recovery.
Right.
Okay. For example, there is US, there is China, there is United Kingdom also. Of course, the Delta variant did change a lot of these dynamics. But then there are even countries like Switzerland ETF, Denmark ETF, for example, and at least in the last 3 to 6 months, they have done exceptionally well. So at our end, we would like to identify, and that is exactly what goes on in the research. Okay, and we seek inputs from the global experts at Philip Capital. That how are these countries expected to do over the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, just because the ETF has done exceptionally well in the last 6 months doesn't mean that once again we seek exposure. We would like to see that what is it that has done well. Are we really late, or is there still upside from a very very long term point of view? Once again, to give an example, let's say as part of the simulated like some risk models that we were running. In 2015, healthcare as a sector had done exceptionally well over the last 10 years. But there was more upside to it because even 5 years later, healthcare has been one of the leading sectors in the US. Same goes for technology. So that is the kind of analysis that we are doing at our end. Now coming to
Right.
the second question. Okay, so how does one really transfer the funds? So first is the unit of currency for Gift City investments is US dollars. So at our end, we will be receiving client dollars, and then we will be, because we are considering US listed ETFs for now, we will be investing also in US dollars. So the unit of currency is very, very standard. There are multiple routes. Investors can directly remit money through the LRS route, and they can transfer the money to our account. Separately, the RBI circular, which recently came up, investors also have the flexibility to actually open a bank account within Gift City. They call
Okay.
it a foreign currency account in an IBU, which is IFSC banking unit. So investors actually have the flexibility to open a dollar-denominated foreign currency account within Gift City. They can transfer money, and then from there we can take it forward in terms of investing. So once again, the Gift City is very, very committed. They are working with banking regulators there, and it is very, very committed to make this entire process of transferring money to Gift City very, very seamless.
Right. Also, the taxation part, can you cover while we are covering this so that we can move to other questions? A lot of people have asked about tax.
Surely. So, of course, if you would have read in the news, and if you would have gone through the Gift City booklet, Gift City does promise taxation benefits. But those taxation benefits, mind you, are for those businesses which are operating in Gift City. For investors in Gift City, the regular rates of taxation will apply. I mean, to cut the long story short, anything that would have been otherwise taxable, under the normal rules of the Income Tax Act regime, should not become exempt merely because it is going through the Gift City route. So for resident Indians, it is taxable, and for non-residents, of course, there are taxation aspects as well, subject to
The, the
the
country
detail
of
of
origin. Right.
the country of origin also.
Okay, good, good. So again, the next question we will take, I mean, on is any one of you can answer is on the fees part of it, on the charges typical. A lot of questions have again come on,
Sure.
this part.
That's fine, yeah.
It's good. It's good. People are cognizant of charges. It's really
Sure,
good.
of course.
Uh,
So see, of course, we have the standard fee structure, yeah, Sankalpa.
hmm,
Yeah. So, but most of our clients go in for a variable fee option, wherein we charge a small management fee, and then there is a performance fee. Yeah, that is the model that most of our clients prefer, and we also suggest clients that okay, don't go only in for a fixed fee option, or don't only go in for a performance fee option. Yeah, because when it is only performance fee option, if something like a last year happens, then the
you
clients
will end
get
up paying maybe
charged a lot.
10% fees. Yeah.
More than 10%. Yeah. So we had few clients, of course, we had given them those kind of warnings. And of course, when you have got 100, 120 odd percent returns, yeah, and So that becomes a challenge at that time. So of course, we have all the three options. We have the only management fee option. We have the only performance fee options. But 85 to 90% of our clients would fall into the hybrid option, where there is a small management fee and then there's a performance fees. Of course, for any specific fees related, then of course they can get in touch with you or they can get in touch with
Right,
us. Yeah,
right,
and we would be more than kind of helpful to
right,
answer them.
right. This is the same applicable to the Gift City products.
So yeah, so Gift City, of course, we are looking at a fixed fee structure,
Okay.
and for fee specific queries, you can always get in touch with us. We'll be more than happy to
Right.
assist you in this.
Right. So to the audience about fees and the performance of the portfolio or any other details, I'm leaving my contacts on the chat. Please to get in touch.
Sure.
Okay.
So again, Mr. N Singh says SEBI is doing away with performance fee option. Will it not affect your cost structure? Unfortunately, Mr. Singh, we do not like to take regulatory questions on this platform, and I don't think we are the correct kind of people to talk about this. Well, so we will omit this question. The next question that I would like to ask to either of you is that at Phillip Capital, you have a lot of portfolios. Okay, any investor typically looking at a fund manager for their philosophy or their fund management style expect, you have many funds to match many different kind of investor needs. Okay, so how does a investor looking at your product should know that this is the kind of product that they want to invest in? Let's say it could be a little bit easier for someone who's looking at a Saria fund, because you either invest in a Saria fund or you don't. Okay, but you
Sure.
also have a DPPMS now, discretionary portfolio now. You have the older signature portfolio. You have a fund of fund. You have a multi-asset. So how do you put that across to
Of course.
investors?
Yeah. So of course, again, it's very
And
clear.
also,
Yeah.
Nishit, before you answer that,
Yeah.
how do you link your overall fund house philosophy to each of these portfolios?
Of course. Yeah. See, of course. Yeah. So first, answering the first question. Yeah. It's very clear. Yeah. All the portfolios have been created with a certain objective. Okay. So as you said that if a Muslim client is coming and he's looking for a Sharia compliant portfolio, then the ethical portfolio perfectly fits into it. Okay. A client who wants us to invest only into mutual fund units, yeah, then the Philips Star portfolio fits in well. Okay. But the flagship product that we generally ask most of our investors to invest into is Philips Signature India portfolio, because we feel it's a very well balanced portfolio of large cap, mid caps, and small caps. Okay. But of course, again, a client who wants to take a little bit of higher risk and he's looking for a higher alpha, then a Philip Emerging India portfolio wherein we invest into mid and small caps. Right? So each of the strategy has a clear defined objective to them, and whatever the client seeks, we have that solution. Yeah? So that is as far as your first question is concerned. The second part of your question was related to Sankalpa. What was it related to?
How do you maintain your overall philosophy at the fund house level
Yeah.
across these products?
Yeah. So investment philosophy across all the products remains same. Yeah, it's long term, it's quality investing. Yeah, research driven approach. The philosophy does not change. Yeah, if you go to see, yeah, even if it's suppose when we are investing into mutual funds, okay, so mutual fund schemes. So we want to invest into schemes which have got a very good track record. It is led by a good fund manager. Yeah, same with ethical. Yeah, so in say suppose what happens under Sharia portfolio. Again, I am no expert on Sharia law. So what we have done out here is we have tied up with world-renowned Sharia scholars, yeah, who tell us what is Sharia, what is not Sharia, and then based on our research, then we select the kind of stocks. Okay? So the investment philosophy remains quite same. So we don't have a long short portfolio or we don't have a speculative portfolio, so which goes against the grain. Yeah. Similarly with Mihir, yeah, the investment philosophy remains
Yeah.
quite similar out there. Yeah. So I don't see a change of investment philosophy across any of our product range.
Sure, and I would just like to add on. So while the Gift City business is a new business for us, and even we are venturing into newer trends, but I can assure you that the portfolio, like the PMS performance of our domestic strategy, the very reason why we have been able to deliver such a superior track record is because of a very disciplined approach. And I can assure you that it is exactly this disciplined approach which runs across our organization, and that is something that we have replicated. Now here, because these are ETF portfolios, but the approach remains the same. So, we are very, very meticulous when it comes to selecting the fund houses. There are a lot of these innovative ETFs. So for us, innovations would be more to do on the business side and not some innovative ETFs like, let's say, a 2x or a 3x exposure, which is giving a very, very derivative based, kind of a risky exposure. Or even in the fixed income segment, for example, we specifically stay away from the high yield segment, also called as the junk bonds, even if it is being provided by, let's say, a very reputed fund house. Similarly, even the fund houses that we select, we would like to go for fund houses that have been in existence for long. We would like to go for fund houses which have very, very disciplined approaches at their end, and that is how we are selecting the products. And of course, as Nishit very rightly pointed out, at our end also the focus is on very, very long-term wealth generation. So we will not be frequently churning our portfolios. Okay. In fact, one of our slide also mentioned, and I would like to just replicate that here also, that if a particular sector or a particular theme is actually poised to do exceptionally well, then the period of holding could very well be a very long period of 10 years, 15 years, even 20 years. So yeah, I mean that it is the same process and the same philosophy running across the organization.
Right, right. Thank you. So, the last question that we'll take from both of you is view on the markets. Maybe Nishit, you can cover the domestic markets, and Mihir, you can cover probably the global markets. What you feel, what could do well, and pockets of outperformance, and what could lack a bit. So, what do you, Nishit? We'll begin with you, and then we'll take it from Mihir.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, of course, that's the most important questions, and that is why most of the investors also would be waiting till now. Yeah. So, of course, we are supremely confident as far as the markets are concerned. Indian markets are concerned over next 2 to 3 years at least. Yeah. We feel that we are in midst of a big bull cycle. Yeah. Of course, we might see some bit of volatility in next couple of few months, because what has happened over last 1 to 1.5 year, we have seen only a one-way kind of a movement. Okay, we have not even seen a 10% correction on the markets. Yeah, last 1 week, of course, mid caps, most of the mid caps have fallen down by 15 to 20%. But if you look at the index level, we have still not seen more than a 10% kind of a correction. So I expect some bit of volatility and some bit of consolidation. But if you go and ask me, I think a lot of money has to be made in next 2 to 3 years period. Yeah, and we are supremely bullish, especially on the mid cap and small cap space. We see a lot of opportunities. Yeah, wherein a lot of money can be made. Yeah, again, what will happen, Sankalp, in the next 2 years? If you go to see again last 1.5 year, if you had picked up any stock, yeah, it would have done 100, maybe 200% kind of a returns, 1x, 2x, 3x kind of returns. But from your end, it would be more selective. Yeah, that is where fund managers' role will come more into picture. Yeah, and it would be a stock pickers market more than rather than a broad-based rally that what we have seen. Yeah, because especially over last 6 months, most of the stocks have done well. Yeah, there used to be guys. I stay in a multi-story building. Okay, so as soon as I used to enter in the lift maybe 2 years back, people used to ask me, "Arey Nishit, kya lene ka?" But nowadays they tell me, "Arey Nishit, ye liya ke nahi?" And next day, of course, it was 20% plus as well. Okay. So I see that I see a little bit of consolidation of volatility, so strong, weaker hands going away, and it would be a lot more stock specific from here on. So that's the view. But of course, yeah, I would strongly suggest everyone to please stay invested into good stocks, yeah, and keep monitoring them. If you invest with us, if you don't invest with us, that is completely different, yeah. But please do invest into good stocks. Don't get carried away by penny stocks and all those things, yeah. And please do your due diligence before you invest.
Right. So, Mihir, can we have it from you?
Sure. At a global level, there are these 4 or 5 concepts which are being in the news consistently, and I'll just touch base upon them. First is, of course, the resurgence of COVID-19 because of Delta variant, because of which lockdowns have been instituted across nations, particularly Australia. So, because of this, one may expect, at least some stress in the short term. Secondly, we are in a very, very low interest rate environment, and even the US Treasury yields, they were rising in the early part of the year, but once again they are falling because it is the same story of inflation, unemployment rate in the US, and of course the US Federal Reserve being very, very accommodative. So that has been playing out. And of course, at a broader markets, once again, the people are really discussing that the markets are at an all-time high. So everyone is very, very like unsure about what would be the way ahead. So even here, there are some specific ideas and specific themes which we believe will play out. So to give an example, let's say the semiconductor space, because of the acute shortage of semiconductors right now, and because of the pandemic-related disruptions, the acute shortage has certainly benefited those companies. So that is a trend that we may expect, to continue. Once again, there has been talks of a commodity super cycle, so that is an area which we may expect to do well. Right now, there is some cooling off in commodities, but maybe later, how is that area that needs to be, that is something that we need to address. At the fixed income level, it could be a very, very tricky situation because of the entire interest rate regime. Because every year, every month, I'm sorry, when the inflation prints are out, suddenly there is some spike in the rates. But even here, some pockets of opportunities like convertible debt, inflation protection bonds. So, those are areas which one can kind of look at.
Right.
These are the themes, and of course, there is a lot of regulatory crackdown by China, because of which, while China tech-based companies were the first ones to take the hit, but the stress also percolated in other areas, let's say China consumer discretionary, and that kind of caused a major sell-off. So, and generally when China gets affected, it takes along with it some of the other emerging market nations as well, including India. So that
Right.
is something that we'll be closely watching. And,
Right. So
these
thank
are
you
the
so
areas
much.
that we can see.
Thank you so much, Meher, on that. Thank you, Nishit, for being with us on the call today.
Yeah.
Thank you to the audience for listening to us patiently. So I have left my contact details. For any further details related to the fund, you can reach out to us. So thank you, Meher, and thank you, Nishit. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and we've come across a lot of new things today, and I hope a lot of investors have taken back a lot from this session. So thank you, everybody, for being on the call.
Thanks,
Thank
thanks,
you. Thank
Sankalp.
you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Yeah. Please, guys, do take care of your health. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.